So in early 2020, probably around February or so, I began working on this. This is my novel, The Orichalcum Crown. And it's a book I very much enjoy. It's something that I really enjoyed writing, and something I appreciated was how much the book changed as I wrote it, as I went through different levels of revisions and editing. But one thing I liked to joke about, especially as the book really started to take shape and I realized this is what it's going to be, it is a book where people sit down and have conversations. There are some action scenes. There's definitely a lot in the climax. I think one reviewer described the climax as, quote, grisly. Like, it's pretty accurate. But it is a book where people sit and talk. I bring that up in this video because, oh boy, the brothers Karamazov, or TBK as I have been referring to it just in my own notes, it puts me to shame in terms of being a book where people sit around and talk. Because even when, like, the plot is actively happening, and if I'm being completely honest, the plot starts maybe it's about 1,000 pages. I think my version's about 1,045 in total. Sorry, I'm just talking about, I don't really need to, but it's a bit over 1,000 pages. I'd say the plot probably starts around 500 pages in. And on the one hand, it was very frustrating. And I think part of it was just looking at the book. Like, for example, look at this page here. Do you see the paragraphs? There's a paragraph right here at the bottom. Another start of a paragraph at the bottom. This is all one paragraph. And there's a lot of pages that are like that. It's just, here is a block of text, usually with one person talking. And even when it's one person just like going on a soliloquy, it's not always broken up. And it's just a personal thing. I'm like, I hate it when I don't see paragraphs. I hate it when I am just looking at a massive block of text. But as frustrating as it could be to just read massive blocks of text because my eyes hate it, and as much as it did kind of annoy me that, like, I'm a few hundred pages in, and not a lot has happened in terms of really progressing the plot or me kind of understanding, like, where are we trying to go here? Although it makes it pretty clear very early on, this is where we're gonna go. Here's all the background information. Number one, that background is very important. It is most, if not everything, comes into play later. And because you have that understanding of these characters, because you have that understanding of their relationships, why they are the way they think, there are things that make a lot of sense, such as, I guess without going deep into spoilers for a book that came out in, I have no idea how old is this book. I don't think I need to put a spoiler warning in Brothers Karamazov with how old it is. For example, like when Katya is on the stand and she has her breakdown and she changes her position from, let me try to save Dmitri, into, no, I hate him and I am going to make sure he suffers. Like, okay, I understand who Katya is. I understand why she's doing this. Do I agree with it? No, but I understand what she's doing. Or, like, the way Mitya is acting during the early part of the investigation, where, like, people will ask him questions, and these are important questions to the investigation. He's like, why are you asking me that? Why would you... Oh, I should mute that. I'm like, why are you asking me this? Why do you care about these irrelevant details? And me looking at this as like these are important questions, you idiot. You were just making yourself look guilty. But I know he's not doing this because he's trying to obfuscate. He's literally thinking to himself, none of this matters. Why are you wasting time asking me dumb shit? Like, I love Mitya. I hate him at the same time, like this idiot. But I can't help but kind of love the guy. But then there's also those moments where I'm like, you're just such an asshole. Like, he is a scoundrel. Like I'm saying, having that understanding and that background makes some of those moments, like, that makes sense. But they also make some of the later moments in the back half feel more meaningful. Such as, I don't know, anything to do with Ivan. You have this guy who in the first half, he's very cynical, he's very cold, he's an intellectual first and foremost, and he's very arrogant. At least that's how I read him. But, like, he feels very condescending. It's like, this is what I believe, and, like, if you're not on my level yet, well, too bad. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but one of the phrases the book is known for, which is something that Ivan parrots, is, if there is no God, then everything is permitted. Our morality comes from God. It comes from the idea of having a soul. It comes from the idea of eternal life. But if that doesn't exist, / you don't believe in it, then what is there to guide you? If you're not afraid of losing your eternal life, if you're not afraid of your soul being damned, you can do whatever you want. But alas, even Ivan, someone who seems to sincerely believe that, is racked with guilt after assisting in the murder of his father, to the point where he is starting to actively hallucinate conversations with the devil, which was a wild thing to read, and I was really enjoying it. But he's hallucinating conversations. He's so like, his guilt is so intense. He has blocked conversations from his memory, and he genuinely doesn't believe he is guilty anymore as a coping mechanism. And I loved those meetings. I can't pronounce his name, like Smirtakarv. I'm probably getting that wrong, but with him, where Smirtakarv is just kind of like, okay, like, what is the line that he says? It's something like, it's very rewarding to talk to a clever man. Like, look, I know people think I'm stupid. I am not nearly as stupid as people think I am. You and I, Ivan, we're similar in that regard. You might be smarter than me. You clearly think you're smarter than me, and maybe you are. But I'm closer to your level than I am to, like, someone else's. So we can have conversations within conversations, and I'll pick up on your meaning, you'll pick up on my meaning, and then as they kind of go along, he just kind of realizes, oh, Ivan doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about anymore. You really think you're innocent? Wait. So are you so stupid that you didn't pick up on what we were discussing? Or have you fallen into your own grief and guilt so hard you've rewritten, like, what happened? I don't think that's how history works. And I really enjoyed that. But even Smirtakarv, someone who is also very arrogant and very, very spiteful, is still overcome with guilt enough that he commits suicide, but is not so guilty as to put it, which is something they note in the trial, he's not so guilty to at least put in his note, this is why I'm doing it, or, like, Dimitri's innocent, because he is that spiteful. And it's less of, I'm doing this out of a sense of guilt and remorse, and I'm committing suicide out of spite. Which is kind of wild. But I do think that, like, that's kind of exactly why he does it. I like the connection that Mitya has with the elder, Zoisma, I think was his name. And how Zoisma talks about, like when I was a youth, I was this very wild person. And I'll be honest, as I was reading his life story, I wasn't putting that connection together yet. But he's talking about, this is who I was. Like, I was wild. Like, I would party. I would fight. Like, I was about to have a duel over something pretty stupid. I think it was, like, I was in love with a woman. Oh, God, it really is. Mitya, even thinking about it more, it's, I was going to fight this guy over a woman that we both cared about. But then I realized, this is stupid. This is pointless. I don't really want to fight over this. I don't want to kill a man. Like, I'm not afraid of losing. I just don't see the point in this anymore. And that's when he's like, I finally understood, like, the words of my dying brother. I am responsible for my brethren. I am the greatest of all sinners, and I will take all sin upon myself. Which is something that Mitya kind of comes to. He comes to that conclusion as well. I found that to be a really interesting connection. And I think what's intended to be a more obvious connection is in the Grand Inquisitor, with Ivan being the Inquisitor and Alyosha being Christ. What I love about the Grand Inquisitor scene is not just the role reversal you get later with Ivan, grandstanding, giving his whole big speech, and then later, oh no, I am now, maybe things weren't all permitted. To me, the crux of the Grand Inquisitor's argument is, because you, being Jesus, because you left, because you did not truly establish a kingdom on earth, we had to do it for you. And for us, like the priests and the church, to pull that off, we've had to warp Christianity from its core ideals and the things you preached to make it something more akin to the devil. Because that's what's appealing. And maybe, just maybe, because the masses don't see that or understand it, we're still saving souls, but we're not saving our own, because we know what we're doing. And then you have the gall to come back. And it spits in the face of the work that we've done. It spits in the face of the sacrifices we've made. Like, do you have any idea how much I have sacrificed? Like, do you understand that concept of having to sacrifice yourself for everyone else? And I'm reading that thinking, yeah, he does. And I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to pick up on that, but just the fact that it's Ivan talking about this, it made me feel like the irony of that is lost on Ivan. And maybe it's not supposed to be, maybe I wasn't quite getting it, but it seemed like he was so into the weeds of, I am making this argument about how Christianity isn't really what it's supposed to be, and if Christ were to see what Christianity has become, maybe he wouldn't be too happy about it, but more importantly, the people in charge of the churches would be so angry to see him come back because they have not been doing what they were supposed to. But I found it interesting that the Inquisitor is essentially saying, you have no idea what it's like to sacrifice yourself for others to the person that made the ultimate sacrifice for everyone. And Christ doesn't say a word the entire time, but just gives him a kiss at the end. It's, despite everything that you have claimed, despite everything that you have done, I forgive you. And then the Inquisitor lets him leave. Because after that, there's nothing I can say to that. And Alyosha, the good boy, the goodest of boys, who everyone in this story, except his name is Ratikin, but I kept calling him Ratkin. This is the only guy in the story that does not like Alyosha. And even then, it's essentially you are like so pure and so good that I just hate you. It's like, it bothers, I guess Smirnokarv does too. Those like the only two people that seem to dislike him. Even the dad, who's an awful person, is like, no, like, you are my son and I actually like you. But it does kind of fit, because by the end of the novel, even though Alyosha knows that Ivan was complicit in their father's murder, he still forgives him. And even maintains, like, it wasn't you that did it. I don't know if he necessarily forgives Smirnokarv for this, because he's like, no, I think he did it. Like, I'll throw him under the bus. But just like Christ, he's able to forgive that Grand Inquisitor. Because despite all of the arrogance and all of the grandstanding, he sees the man before him who is in pain. And is able to love him. And as much as people talk about the Grand Inquisitor scene, because it's by far the most famous part of the whole book, I wouldn't say it's my favorite. It's when Alyosha is talking to the captain. I can't remember his name, but it's Ilusha's father. And he goes on a mission from Katya, who... I have to say how much I love Katya. Like, just that whole concept of her toxic love for Dmitri, and I love my wounded pride more than I love you, but I'm going to stay in this relationship. It's like, I'm addicted. She's addicted. That's what I want to say. I'm sorry. Like, she is addicted essentially to her own suffering, which is very clearly unhealthy. But it is fascinating to read. But she says to herself, okay, so Dimitri's an asshole, and he has made an enemy of this man. And as someone who has also been wounded by Dmitri being an asshole, I feel a sense of kinship with them. Also, if I could bribe them into not suing my husband, or, excuse me, they're actually not married, I don't believe. It's like my fiance, that would be great. But I do feel a sense of kinship as someone who also kind of hates Dmitri. So, Alyosha, you're the goodest, sweetest boy who has ever lived. I have a task for you. I am going to give you some money that you can give to the captain. Let bygones be bygones. Hopefully he doesn't sue him like dumbass Dmitri. But he and I can maybe be friends. And Alyosha goes to the house, and it is not a warm reception, but then he ends up talking to the captain and essentially tells him, here's some money and this is what it's for. And the captain, after Alyosha has seen the state of his life, and he's been able to talk about his position, how difficult everything is, his eyes just like, grow super wide, and he realizes, I can change my life. I can change the fortune of my family. Do you know what I can do with this money? I can do this for my wife. I can do this for my daughter. I can do this for my other daughter. I can do this for my son. I can do this for me. I can change everything. And Alyosha's like, yeah, do it. That would be great. Like, you should take the money. You should, like, look after your family. And, if anything happens down the road, I know Katya would be happy to help you. Because, like, she does feel that sense of kinship. Like, it's a win-win. And that's when the captain's tune changes. Because to him, how do I say it? And part of it, I think, is like accepting that help is essentially inviting a debt that he knows he can never repay. Part of it is, I am letting her buy my pride. Because if I accept this, I'm essentially saying I'm willing to forgive your husband. And I'm not, but I am. But I know that my son would never look at me the same way again if I, forgave her husband. And he starts saying to Alyosha, like, you know what, you're right. I could do a lot with this money, huh? You know, I could do this. I could do this and this and this. And you know what I really want to do with it? And just slams it on the ground and rubs his feet and rubs some dirt in it and just... This is what I think of your generosity and of your kindness. And then he storms off. And Alyosha is just dumbfounded by what happened. Like, dude, you literally could have changed your entire life. Why? Okay, this is my bad. I pushed a little too hard. But it's okay. The money is crumpled, but it's still intact. It's still usable. So let me gather it. Let me come tomorrow, maybe the next day. I think once he's had some time to sleep on it, I think he'll come around. And that is ultimately what happens. But just that particular passage, aside from maybe the trial, was one of the few times I was like, I cannot put this book down right now. Like, I was just so enthralled. Yes, TBK is a book where people just sit around and talk. They talk about culture, politics, religion, philosophy, the details of a murder trial, love, hate, pride, all of this stuff. And I find a lot of these to be interesting topics discussed by generally pretty interesting people. I don't know if it would be one of my favorite books. And there were definitely points reading it where I'm like, this is kind of a drag. But I am very glad that I finally decided to read it. I just kind of wanted to see, is there anything else I wanted to say? I was just looking at some of my notes. I haven't said anything about Grushenka. Just one note that I had was she reminds me a lot of Nicole from Class of '09, where here is someone that has been abused by people that she cared about and people she trusted. And I think sort of as a coping mechanism for all of that pain and all of that resentment, she has turned that around on others to try to hurt them the way she has been hurt. Like, because she was seduced and then he went off to marry someone else, she is now in a position where she can enjoy that same power over Karamazov Sr. and Dmitri. And there's this one bit with her that's another one of my favorite parts of the book. It's when she's talking to Alyosha after she learns that, like, her lover has requested her again. That's a weird way of saying it. After he wrote her a letter saying, like, hey, you know, I think his wife died. I don't think they were divorced. But it's like, hey, I'm single again. I'm in the area. You want to talk? You want to get together? And she's like, I'm going to be honest. For the past 5 years, I might have the number wrong, but it's like the past 5 years, I have been carrying that hurt, that disgust, and that shame. And now he writes to me, and it's like a master with his little bell calling for his dog. And I'm going to go see him. I'm going to go run up to him like a wounded puppy, and I hate myself for that. And I still don't know what I'm going to do when I see him. There's a part of me that says, I am going to show him what he missed. That I am going to let him know how beautiful I am, how wealthy I am, and let him know this is the last time he will ever see me. That he's going to get what he deserves. But I know I won't. I know that he's ringing his bell, and like a good dog, I am going to go back to my master's side. And I just found that part like really interesting. Sorry, I don't really have more to say about it. I didn't take a lot of notes as I was reading the book, but yeah, TBK. Glad TBK is no longer on my TBR.